leaders. In this episode of Leading Collaborative Response, we're excited to be joined by several members of the senior leadership team at Southeast Cornerstone Public School Division, located in the, you guessed it, southeast corner of the province of Saskatchewan. The divisional leadership team has not only been leading and supporting schools in the implementation and growth of collaborative response in each of their communities, but have also adopted the approach to support how they respond at the divisional level to the needs of schools. We're looking forward to hearing what they've learned through the process and lessons learned as they continue to move forward. So let's get started.
Are you a leader who is navigating the nuances of leading collaborative response in your school or district? Are you unsure of what collaborative response is? Are you looking to understand the critical role leadership plays when establishing and refining a collaborative response approach?
Collaborative response began as a grassroots approach to focus on the needs of students through a framework of collaboration. That approach has grown to a movement that is training leadership and education.
Through the Leading Collaborative Response podcast, Kurtis and I share our own experiences of leading collaborative response and lessons learned as we continue to learn and gain insight through the experiences of working alongside others. We also have the opportunity to engage in conversations with school and divisional leaders implementing the framework in their own organizations.
We know great leaders build great teams because that is what every child deserves. Subscribe to the Leading Collaborative Response podcast and join the thousands of schools seeing success for students through intentional and focused collaborative efforts.
Welcome to another episode of Leading Collaborative Response. As always, I'm Lorna Hewson, co-founder and lead learner of Jigsaw Learning.
And I'm Kurtis Hewson. Today, we would love to welcome, and if you're watching the video, you will see the romper room type screen. If not on audio, we have 5 guests that are joining us. We have Cheryl, Aaron, Jacquie, Tracey, and Michael from Southeast Cornerstone Public School Division to the podcast. Welcome. We first met a few of the members of the team in the spring of 2023 at a workshop in Regina, Saskatchewan. And from that, we've developed an ongoing relationship as they have worked to make collaborative response a core component of who they are as a school division. We have lots to dig into, so let's get started. We'd love to start off with just some quick introductions of your role and maybe one thing in your educational journey that you think is noteworthy to let our audience know. Anyone like to start us off? Tracey, it's all yours. And then just in good fashion from our old Zoom days, if you want to select the next person to go right after you, that'd be awesome.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Tracey Kiliwnik. I am the Learning Support Coordinator for the school division, and I mostly oversee our students with intensive needs and our learning support teachers that support Tier 3. I've been here the longest. And so I was here when we first started the implementation of RTI. So I may not be the oldest. Oh yeah, I'm the oldest too. So.
You don't need to admit that.
Hi, I'm Michael Graham. I am the Curriculum and Instructional Technology Coordinator with the school division. Most of my role has me working with teachers and not so much directly with students, just supporting their teaching practices and the students within their schools. And I will go with Tracey and say that I have been here the least amount of time, and I'll leave that as my fun little fact.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, I have been in my role as Student Services Coordinator for 10 years, my 10th year in this particular role. I mainly support the RTI coaches and the Tier 2 interventions, as well as take care of all of our mental health and well-being initiatives and some of our safe school initiatives that we have going in our school division. And most noteworthy, the process, the ever learning process of never being stagnant and never having one day the same ever in my career.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Aaron Hiske. I'm the Deputy Director of Education here at Southeast Cornerstone Public School Division. I get to work with these fantastic people on this team. We are part of the coordinator group as well as the learning support team. We work together on multiple different levels. So I'm very fortunate to be able to work with a bunch of strong advocates for education and these people who love kids and want to make sure that we're having success and achievement for every student in every school. Jacquie.
Okay, I'm the early learning coordinator in our school division. And fun fact, this is my 28th year in this school division.
Awesome.
Excellent.
All right. Well, so great to be able to connect with each of you and share a little bit of your role. But we'd love to go back to Aaron. Do you mind giving our listeners just a little bit of a overview of Southeast Cornerstone? How many schools, how many students, just some of the basic lay of the land before we jump into talking about what collaborative responses look like within the organization.
I would love to, Kurtis. Thank you. So we've got 35 schools in 27 different communities across the southeast corner of Saskatchewan. We support students from 3 different First Nations within our division area as well. We extend from the Manitoba border in the east to a small town of Ogama in the west, up to Fillmore, which is a fairly small town, in Rocanville in the north, and then down to the U.S. border. There's approximately 8,200 students pre-K to 12. When we have that divided into kind of 3 areas or 3 families of schools, east, south, and west, with the superintendent in each area, and then we have got instructional coaches and that support each area or division as a whole. We implemented an RTI model in 2010 and established some effective practices in. So we've been on that journey for a long time. And then we got an email, or like I said, early spring in 2023 about something interesting we should maybe check out from a neighboring school division. And that's how we connected with you fine folks.
Awesome. And actually, that's where we were going to go next, because we did a little bit of research on this. And it was, I believe, March of 2023. And Lorna and I were in Regina hosting a workshop. And as we were getting ready for it, we went, oh my goodness, there's not as many people here as we would have liked. I think we had like 10 or 12 on the list until we got into the workshop. And there were these 3 ladies that were just buzzing as we went through. And not to throw anyone under the bus, but there were points where, okay, they're talking through as we're trying to present and whatnot. Like, there's obviously a little bit of connection and excitement. So
And had amazing questions.
yeah, absolutely. We left that session going, okay, this was totally worth the opportunity to be able to come and share. So I'd love to turn it over to that threesome to just share what initially drew you to this work, and then let's jump into some of the alignment.
That's really funny because we talk about that all the time. We talk about the magical moments of when we showed up at that workshop. And I don't think we had the expectation that this was going to change everything we do. But I think that in a lot of small ways and some big ways, it has. Like Cheryl and Tracey and I were listening. And I think that there was a moment when we saw how what we did and what we weren't doing yet was all possible through collaborative response. And so we all just sort of, I don't know, I felt like we locked eyes and went like, this is it. It was very exciting. It was very exciting.
Tracey, Cheryl, anything else to add to Jacquie there?
Yeah, I think as we listened to your presentation, you had, put on, this meeting, this meeting, this meeting, this meeting. And we were like going, well, check, we have that meeting, check, we have that meeting, check, we have that meeting. That's our one missing meeting. But yet we had another structure in place that could easily transition to that meeting. So it connected every dot for us. And we were like very excited about everything that we're doing was already great stuff. And then this was just one thing to pull it all together. And that was our one missing link in the whole progression of steps that we do.
Yeah. And I would just add that being on the first implementation of our response to intervention model, and we kind of built everything backwards in terms of addressing our tier 3, our tier 2, and then all the conversations are, how do we support tier 1? And so then, like Jacquie said, we all kind of looked at each other and went, oh my goodness, like we couldn't wait to get back to our table to share what we had learned that day.
Not being at the actual presentation, like you said, the buzzing continued when they got back to the division office here, and the three of them were very, very excited, and they were telling me about this, and this might be the next thing, and we really need to think about how we can. And they were coming back so energized and just full of possibilities. There was like, wow, okay, this was definitely impactful having them attend that.
So I do remember, Aaron, and I'll go directly to you. From that, we had an opportunity for some further conversations, and then a chance to be able to share with leaders a version of what Jacquie and Tracey and Cheryl experienced in Regina. And I can remember at that day, you coming and saying, oh my goodness, I think I see some possibilities. Here's some alignment. Do you want to talk about it? Because I think it was really key, just like the other three shared. This wasn't about something brand new. It was about alignment and how are things connecting for us.
Well, that was my initial struggle, is because as they were explaining to me the different pieces, I'm like, well, we have that piece.
Yeah.
Well, we have that piece. And well, yeah, it's interesting with RTI model. We've got that kind of going. So I was failing to see it wasn't a crystallizing moment yet for me what this was actually all about. So when I look back at the timeline, and I've apologized to the team a few times, I felt I was kind of delayed in jumping on board and kind of grabbing that and going with it, right? So when we look back at the timeline, it was actually only a period of about 7 days before we ordered books for the entire admin team and then booked stuff for you guys to be able to present and talk to you. And I was still not quite there, but the team led me to be, you know what, we're really onto something here. And like you said, Kurtis, once I was able to read through the first chapter of the book myself and started to kind of wrap my head around, okay, well, we have that, but it could look a little bit different. This might be what we need to be able to move us forward there. And then the conversation with yourself was just super crystallizing, like this is the thing that we've been missing, and this is what's going to propel us forward system-wide, and it's going to affect everything that we do. Good.
We always, anytime that we share these ideas with new groups of people, it's always about being able to recognize that there are things in place in your system or in your school that just need to be able to move into that tweaking phase and the connection piece, because that's when you see the power of it all, is how each of those meetings connect with each other, how the continuum of supports connects with the meetings, and how our data fits in with that bigger picture too. It's about those connections that make it such a powerful movement.
Well, and I think when you discuss too that, we began work around RTI in 2010-ish, you never want to come to a place of, okay, we're going to stop doing that and start a new thing. It's no, how can you continue to build upon?
Well, and actually, I think and you can speak to this, but I think for you, that foundation that you had done or had established in response to intervention actually opened the doors for collaborative response.
Yeah. And at the same time, we had recognized that there was a need to support our tier 1 instruction as well. And we had time in our schedules built into our school schedules where there was an expectation for collaboration. And yet we didn't have all of the structures that we needed to really make it work. So we even had the time dedicated to tier 1 and we were ready to take it and run, but we just needed your missing pieces for that as well.
I found that taking that last step, using the time that we had already set aside for it was our instructional team planning time that we had for our schools, and just the slight tweak was the next step that we needed to go and make that process more effective, and collaborative response kind of led us down that pathway. Just to keep some of our schools moving that were already moving, and to get some of the other schools that just need a little bit more structure, a little bit more support to get some of the processes rolling at their level. It was just the natural next step to take.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And let's just dive a little deeper into that then, Michael, and or anybody else who wants to respond. Just thinking about the specifics of what you have done with your schools, what's happened in the schools. What are some of the things that you've done to support your schools in introducing and implementing collaborative response?
I will allow other people to jump in as they want, but I think the biggest thing that we did was right from the get-go. As Aaron mentioned, we spent 7 days mulling over it and then purchased books for all of our admin. And we kind of got all of our administrators in all of our buildings reading the same book, actually reading the same book, and kind of at the same page. So we did have a big startup right at the end of one school year leading into our next school year. We had incoming administrators also attend that meeting. So it was just good timing to go and kind of say, this is going to be the guidelines that we're going through, gave administrators time to mull over what they needed for the rest of that month in June and over the summer and any of their planning work that they wanted to think about. And then when we came back in August, we started onboarding all of our teaching staff. And it was just that process of, we had our senior leaders at the division office with a couple of months leeway to kind of chew through some things. And then we had our administrators brought on board, time to go through some of their items and kind of take their lens into it. And then once we got to the point of onboarding all of our teachers, we had several people around the table already that would be able to provide additional supports as we needed.
With that, Mike, we'll also just, we had done quite a bit of work around, some of Hattie's research and, collective teacher efficacy, of course, has a huge impact on student learning, but we didn't really know how to improve that. We didn't really know how to take that and run. And of course, as you know, we're coming on COVID when we had lots of top-down directives, and this is must-haves, must-dos, because the student safety was number one, and it really took away opportunities for teachers to be able to collaborate and to kind of grow. So when we looked at implementing this process there, and the fact that we kind of set the stage for this is the playing field, and really gave folks lots of leeway to what the play on the field could look like, and we just made sure that we were driving the fact that this is a way for us to get towards better teacher efficacy by collaboration, and the school teams have the answers to many of the pieces that we're looking for, and often the questions that come up, and giving them the opportunity to say, yeah, we do have the answers to this, and we can work on this together. And it was a different approach from the system level that we'd experienced in the last couple of years, because like I said, coming out of the pandemic and into the pandemic, there was lots of really tight restrictions, and we were able to kind of approach it. Now, as a senior leader, that's uncomfortable. That's an uncomfortable space to kind of back up and say, okay, and people were a little bit put off as far as, well, just tell us what to do, right? Some folks just want to just tell us what to do, and so the work through that and giving the opportunity to kind of explore and not have a set plan or a set, we just kind of set milestones here and there. This is what we'd like you to have by this date, and well, what could that look like? Well, what could it look like? And those conversations. It was really a different approach from the senior leadership level for a division-wide implementation of something, without having hard parameters of what that could look like. So that was interesting work.
That's great that you bring that up, Aaron, because that whole idea that this is not a program, collaborative response is not.
You're not getting trained.
It's not a step-by-step. There are so many decisions that need to be made at the site, and lots of flexibility for teacher autonomy and for teacher and collaborative decision-making, which is really important in the overall process, and how your schools grab onto those ideas and use them to really do everything in their schools.
I don't think we could have done it, though. I don't think we could have done it without you doing the presentation that you did for our administrators, the presentation that you did for our teaching staff. I think they needed the why, and I don't think that our team could have delivered the why with the success that you were able to deliver that to our teaching staff and to our administrators. I don't think that we would have made the progress that we did without having you do that for us.
I also I also think that being here from the start of the implementation of RTI in this school division is very proactive in planning for students and meeting the needs of all the kids in the schools. And we've implemented a lot of things along the way. And sometimes we get a feedback that, oh, here's the flavor of the month or flavor of the year coming along.
Yeah.
But when we connected, when you did the presentation and people saw the same connections that we saw, that like our student support teams, our our student success process, all of those pieces were put in place. And this was like that final connection. And so they saw the same connections, and it's like, this isn't going away. This is the way we do business now. That's really like been, I don't want to say a buy-in, but teachers feel their voices are heard, and there's more of a sense of community in a lot of the schools.
Well, and through this too, we've often talked about, you're not providing a paint by numbers process, but you are providing, here's a frame that we're all going to paint within. Here's the general direction that we're going, but there's going to be some nuance within it as well.
I think what it offers, which is very key, is it's taking it away from individual students, and it's giving that framework of how we take it from individual students and turn it into teaching and instruction and sharing those good teaching strategies. How do we, there's where we always wanted to get. We wanted to focus on the teaching and the tier 1 instruction, but we always focused on students because that's how our meetings were set up. This structure put in that meeting to allow us to move from student to instruction and tier 1 instruction effectively. And that was the key. It really was.
Well, and I would imagine, especially, I'm thinking, Tracey, specifically in your role, without that, you're getting the one kid at a time. We've had one school or school division say where it felt like whack-a-mole, where this is coming up and some schools are throwing a ton of referrals at us. Others, boy, we wish we heard more from them, but there's no structure or sequence system for supporting and identifying. So I'm curious, before we jump into the work at the divisional level, because you've taken this one step further from just implementation at the schools, what have been some of the reactions that you've heard from your school? Have you seen impact at this point, knowing that you're into, what is it now, probably year 3 of, if year 1 was we're just testing the waters?
Love to hear some of the challenges that the schools have gone through as well. Like, so both the challenges and the visible impact of that work.
We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you looking to maximize the collaborative capacity of your school or district? Are you wanting to take your professional learning communities or response to intervention work to the next level? Have you started the work in collaborative response but are looking to reignite or deepen your plans? We would love to have you join us at the 2025 Collaborative Response Retreat happening May 2nd and 3rd in beautiful Lacombe, Alberta.
Over the 2 days, we have an intentionally designed program of breakout sessions and sharing, along with supported team planning time to ensure that you walk away with a plan for introducing or strengthening collaborative response in your organization for the upcoming year. With a concentrated focus on team planning, networking, and individualized support for your school, the Collaborative Response Retreat is an outstanding opportunity to grow your team's understanding and implementation of this powerful support framework. We are also planning some fun time so you can relax and enjoy activities as a team in our historic community of Lacombe in central Alberta.
In addition, participants will gain access to an extensive repository of online resources to deepen their understanding and support ongoing implementation. Plan to join a growing network of educators dedicated to responding to the diverse needs of their learners. We've capped our attendance at 140 participants, so make sure to register early to secure your team spot. We're looking forward to seeing you in Lacombe in May. And now back to our conversation.
Okay, well, I can jump on that one to start the conversation. We just recently actually surveyed our administrators and asked them specifically, look, we were developing this process, and we took on the structure to increase teacher efficacy. And ultimately then student achievement, right? So what successes have we had in the buildings that you can share? And they came back and they gave us 4 themes. We themed the data set that we got back, and they talked about teacher collective efficacy and how we've impacted that in a positive way. They talked about the fact that there is teacher voice, which then increased teacher engagement, which then, of course, would increase student engagement. They talked about how it impacted other processes, and they've used the structure and the model in their staff meetings, in their different sets of meetings that they have, having the celebration part added in as an important piece, right? So they've impacted that. And then the last kind of theme that we pulled from the 35 respondents, I believe we had 35 schools, was just a sense of belonging and an increase of school community. And the idea of we've all heard stories of we've got one teacher in one side of the school doing a bang up job, but the door is closed, and the teacher right across the hallway, they might be missing out on some opportunities that would work for both of the kids, right? So the opportunity to discuss things that have been working in the classroom and problem solve together, that's something that's really jumped out. I'll turn it to the rest of the team for some more pieces there.
Just regarding some of the challenges, I don't know if it's so much a challenge, but it was just some schools like setting that structure, like your norms, assigning your duties, sticking to your time frame. I think that whole practice would be one of the challenges. And even us, when we were implementing with our different groups, like I did some with SLPs, I know Jacquie did with her coaching team. It was just that sticking to the structure and doing it over and over again, so it didn't feel like robotic, but it felt more natural that this is the way we need to run meetings. So
Yeah,
Tracey, I would
funny.
expect through that 2 things happening. Especially when you have smaller schools that might have 3, 4, 5 staff members in the entire school. I'm sure you heard really, do we have to put this type of structure? We already collaborate great together. And then same with your SLPs, your instructional coaches, to be able to say, actually, I think we have fairly robust meetings already. What do we put in? And our experience has been over and over and over again is if you're already collaborating well, you're just throwing gasoline on a fire that's already burning. It'll take it to another level. Trust us.
Yeah. And it absolutely feels awkward at first. We hear that consistently, that it is strange because, especially with the collaborative team meeting, it is not a structure that has been present prior to collaborative response. Mm-hmm. And so it is awkward, but we know that those structural components and the process is impactful in so many ways.
So Tracey, I know that it had been shared early that was a little bit of a struggle starting off of trying to get some administrators who are doing great work in their buildings, but haven't necessarily needed or put into place some of the structure pieces. Do you find that there was a little bit of a turnaround in their understanding or seeing that impact?
we haven't really addressed that with the administrators to see. We just know that was kind of in just some conversations that was a struggle. But I do know that when we did provide a bit more, like through podcasts or at our admin meetings, like areas to cover, like the importance of norms, the importance of, and then our admin team also would lead a collaborative team meeting. They would follow all of the, like, model it all. So then I think some administrators started to see that the importance of it.
Awesome.
And I think this year too, I'll just jump in quickly. This year too, we've tightened up a little bit on the fact of the structure and the collaborative team meeting, and these are integral pieces to it. And we're not at a spot yet where we can vary from that or stray from that. So we do have to have the norms. We do have to, have the jobs assigned and have the cards, and we're really tight on that structure And that, like you mentioned, Kurtis, you'd have heard before. Well, there's only 4 of us. We collaborate all the time, but this is making it official, and it's documented, and we're following the process. We have to be true to the process. So we have leeway in the implementation and what that process is discussing, or the issues that they're working on, or what the timing of that meeting and all those things are. But we're really tightened up this year on sticking to that process and seeing it through from top to bottom. And that's one of the things Tracey mentioned, where our admin council, they run a collaborative team meeting at every one of our administrator meetings. They send out a pre-meeting organizer. They're subdivided into 8 or 9 teams, and then they run a collaborative team meeting mostly around administrative duties right there in 9 or different pods at our admin meeting. And we've set aside time for them to do that. It's usually pieces that this team would have led, but we recognize the fact of the collaborative part, and having that admin council being able to lead through those pieces, and the administrators feel a little bit more comfortable working with the peer through that, as opposed to any sort of perceived or actual structural difficulties based on people's occupation. So
No, yeah, and even at the school level, but then we use it at the divisional level too with our meetings. And because we've always had norms. We've had norms for our learning support team meetings, which is our superintendents and coordinator meetings, but we've never really chosen this norm and stuck with it and really had focus on that in our meetings. And that has changed the structure of our meetings as well. When we think of how it's impacted other areas in our division and stuff. So there's a lot of rollover into other things that we do, although those meetings may not follow that complete collaborative response structure because we have different issues, but we've taken certain pieces from those meetings into what we do across different parts of our division, and that's important as well.
Well,
So let's talk about
I was going to
that
say, you set it up.
because so we talked about how that has impacted schools, and schools are working on that implementation and highly affecting collective efficacy and student learning. And you've moved that into your leadership meetings with your admin, that you're using those same processes, but you also have been using them at the district level as well. So I'd love to be able to have you share a little bit about what has that journey looked like.
And would love to even get into some specifics, because I know there's going to be some divisional leaders listening that will go, interesting. How do you do that?
Okay, well, I'll start first, and please jump in, team. And I think each of our team members here listed on the call have also worked from the division level with their district teams as well. They're coaches, coordinators, or coaches, consultants, etc. But I'll just start from a district level of our learning support team, which Cheryl mentioned. That's our team that meets every couple of weeks, and that includes all the superintendents, area superintendents, myself, our director, and this coordinator team, and that's where a lot of the meat and potatoes of division learning takes place, both for PD for staff, supports for students, like that. It's the whole gamut, right? So that team, after I had done a little bit of reading and attended, I thought that this is something that we can definitely take and have it at all of our levels. So we're currently right now at the learning support team, we're working on our continuum of supports for student transitions. That's one of the pieces that we were going to look at as a system. We felt that we could have some more work to do in that particular piece. It follows the provincial education plan. One of the priority areas is student transitions. So we've been applying the structure of the collaborative team meeting, as well as the continuum of supports and the different evaluative rubrics and those things that we've developed to be able to build pieces at the system level. So not only are we using the structure to conduct our meetings, but we're also actually following similar processes as we're asking our school to do, developing continuum of supports, sharing that, gathering feedback on that, and it's pieces that we can supply to schools from here at a system level. So this is a tier 1 support for school transitions that's available to every school. It's housed perhaps or delivered from the system level, but then we're currently building that piece right now. So we started with transitions. We've just got the continuum of supports kind of built. We have not shared that with our administrator team yet, but that'd be the next piece, right? Sharing it with our administrators and, how are we missing anything? Are there pieces on here that we should have, and then we have conversations when we have an issue arriving at a school, we can refer to that continuum of supports and it becomes, okay, we've done this one, we've done this, we've done this. What would kind of be our next step? So that's kind of ways that we've kind of implemented both the process as well as the development of the pieces.
I think what was interesting too with that continuum of supports for transitions is when we talk about our big rocks, and we want to hold on to everything as a big rock. Like we had a huge list of big rocks, and
I remember that initial conversation.
Yeah, it's like that's important, and it really helped us even at the division level to look at big rock, but then what are actions and what are expectations, and which tend to be a little separate from our big rocks. So that allowed us to look at everything that we do and really focus down. And I think that was very helpful when developing that continuum of supports as well. So that was a good step for us to take.
I also think that, like Aaron mentioned, the provincial education plan and our priority areas, and we collect all our data, like from our student data, and we look at the data and we determine, okay, what do we need? What do our schools need? But we never really had that data collective tool that we were really digging in deep. And then what interventions are we already doing or support, and what do our schools really need? So that process was really eye-opening as well, is that we're like, okay, we do have these targeted areas now that we can focus on and put our energy into for the areas of transition.
Awesome. Any other insights from that? Because I know in facilitating one of the first ones, that little bit of a shift of, well, let's not talk about this school. Let's talk about at this school, there's a key issue that we are noticing. What other schools could be there? And then it turns not as an evaluative conversation about the school, but rather, okay, as a divisional team, now we have a responsibility. What are we going to do to help get that? Because we have a bar and we need everybody to get to that bar.
And defining what that bar was, that was difficult for us to drill down into. Like Cheryl mentioned, we kind of wanted to keep everything, and almost all of us have had we were all married to at least one or two of those division initiatives that we'd put in place, right? And those were kind of our ideas or our babies, and we put those in. So to say that maybe that's not exactly a focus right now, that was a little bit challenging for us, because like Cheryl said, we want everybody to keep doing everything that they've been doing, and right, because that's why we're doing it, because we think it was a good idea at the time. Just recently, and maybe Jacquie could talk about this a little bit more. We've done some work around and a little bit of investigating around some data sets and having conversations around those, and we're through the work of the kind of the big rocks and the information things, we're finding some gaps that we had in our system that we didn't really know were there before. So through the process of examining what our big rocks are, one of the pieces in transitions we kind of identified was the early learning and the early entrance and those pieces. So the EYE gives us an idea of the early years evaluation, where our kindergarten kids are at, and a multitude of pieces as they're entering kindergarten. We believe we had a process in place where data would then be shared back with the teachers. They'd put different pieces in place in order to kind of address those needs and kind of move on. So as we identified that as one of our big rocks, we said, you know what, maybe it's time for us to kind of go back and have some conversation with folks about that process and what that process looks like. So it came up as one of our transition big rocks, is having that data. And then as we had that conversation, it caused us to kind of have a look at some of our processes were in place. And we're discovering some things there that perhaps might have got missed somewhere along the way. And it's more of an informative piece and kind of getting people on the same page and able to connect them with other schools that are doing the similar processes. And like we're able to kind of work through that. But the fact of identifying it and going through that as a big rock and something that we're really believe in Cornerstone, we're kind of looking at some of our implementation pieces that we thought were in place for a long time. And it's given us an example. The conversations around the collaborative team meetings have given us some actions from a system level to just kind of check up on some things. That's what I was thinking there.
Yeah, and it's that old saying, it's the can of worms, right? When you start looking deeply at data, then it does open up some areas that you
just can't ignore once that.
You can't just walk away from that. Right. So, Michael, I just wanted to know a little bit about how that has the collaborative response has impacted your work.
We'll be right back to continue this episode.
Feeling overwhelmed with the expectations being placed on teachers, leaders, and educational systems to respond to the diverse needs of our learners?
Are you wanting to take your PLCs and RTI efforts to the next level?
It definitely takes a highly coordinated framework of structures and processes to maximize the collective capacity of your team to ensure success for all students. Collaborative Response is that framework.
Order your copy of our bestseller, Collaborative Response, 3 foundational components that transform how we respond to the needs of learners, which includes access to a comprehensive companion website. Join the thousands of schools using the framework to ensure high levels of success for students and staff. And now back to our conversation.
I have a couple of teams of people that I work with, and some of them, the ones that I work more frequently with, they weren't part of any of the initial rollout that we had. Mostly they're our help desk technicians, but we do have we go through a cycle of kind of it's all problem solving all the time with that group, with that team that we have. And so when we're talking about stuff, although they're not fully versed in the language of collaborative response, I try to use a lot of the just the idea of, okay, let's celebrate that we got this issue fixed and we have this solution in place. And so I've just been trying to initiate having some of the features that are part of a collaborative response meeting, kind of guiding some of the structures that we have when we go through some of our problem solving models. I feel like it's been fairly successful just having some of those conversations, because it's never going in with a, ooh, I'm doing something. There's no I'm doing something wrong or anyone's doing something wrong. It's let's celebrate what we got done. And okay, we're all noticing these are issues that are cropping up in a whole bunch of different areas in our school division. Usually they have things to do with like grade books and student information and things like just some of the data banks that we have. And so it's just a matter of coming up with, hey, I think this might be a solution, or we could try this, and then the team just kind of gets together, and it's become a natural flow to sit down in an office and have an impromptu collaborative response meeting without actually defining it as the collaborative response. It's more of a individual, almost like a case consult, but we're not talking about an individual student. We end up talking about an individual problem itself, just a different lens on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, and utilizing that framework to frame those conversations.
Jacquie, I know I had moved on. You had a comment there. Can I come back to you?
Oh, and I was just going to say too about Michael and Michael's work. I think that the collaborative response model, the culture that it creates, permeates every meeting. I think that that's what happens there, right? That we might have a very structured collaborative response meeting time in schools and with our various teams. But I think that the culture permeates everywhere. And that's a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from our administrators, but also from our coaching teams. When we run meetings and we start with celebrations, and then those celebrations become a conversation about what actions did we take here? When the emphasis is on our action, and then we circle around to that at the end of the meeting and we emphasize again, what are the actions that we're going to take? I think that's the magic of the collaborative response. And I see that across the board in all of the meetings that we participate in, whether we call them collaborative response structured meetings or not.
Sorry.
It's so interesting because we often talk about, the need to build a culture of collaboration, and that's so critical to the work that we do. But it doesn't happen by building a culture of collaboration. It actually happens through these really defined structures and processes. And if we're adhering tightly to those, it results in the culture of collaboration.
So on this podcast, we always end off with 2 questions that we ask guests. And Jacquie, you just answered the first one already for us. We typically ask, as a result of collaborative response, we have seen, and you're sharing with us, a shift in culture that's happened across the division. So I would love to extend that to other members of the team. How would you finish that statement? As a result of collaborative response, we have seen.
I would say, I think we've seen a shift that this is not division driven. It's school-based and teacher-driven. And so like when you talk about that shift, it's not the division is mandating us to do this. It's the teachers are seeing the values in that, in the meetings, and are excited about going back and trying new things with students.
And I would say it's the shift of, it's not another thing to do. It's just a different way to have a conversation and talk about our skills.
Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl.
I think that's the shift.
Aaron or Michael, anything else that you would add to that before we move to our last question?
My only shift that I think I hear from teachers out in the field is just that it brings all these separate processes we have together. So the cultural shift that Jacquie talks about, the other shifts that other people talk about, it's just more grouping everything and having a common language, common framework for the stuff that was already going on in some cases, and adding on a few additional pieces that just provide some additional directions for people.
I've seen efficiency in meetings and efficiency in those structures, and we all know it's very difficult to find time to meet. Everyone's busy, so I've definitely seen a change there. I've also seen a change in the collaborative culture. We can see that, and it's palpable. You see it at all of our meetings. So.
All right. Well, we always finish with this little bit of a reflective exercise, and we'll ask for anyone to jump in who's ready. The question is, in the spirit of, if you knew then what you know now, what advice would you give your past self in relation to the collaborative response work?
I wonder if we could adopt faster. We took 7 whole days before we ordered those books. So, just wondering.
Well, I think
That was pretty quick.
that jumps right to the ready, fire, aim of, okay, we're going to get ready and then just fire. Let's get started. Thanks, Jacquie. So anyone else, any advice you would give yourself 3 years when starting off?
Oh, sorry. I think we kind of planned the first little bit with the 2 of you, like having you come meet with the administrators, but we didn't have that long length plan of what the impact of that would be. So then we kind of had to backtrack. We spent a meeting backtracking what that would look like and what our timeline would look like. So I think that's key, is that if you can have that timeline a little more planned out, then it kind of would make things maybe run a little more efficient and smoothly when you're trying to implement it. But we were also learning so much along the way. Like I don't know we had the direction at that time or that vision that we would be doing this for the division level priorities. We were just more focused on our schools. So that would be one of the things.
So it does take longer than 7 days.
Yeah. I would have brought Aaron and a few of the senior leaders with us to the workshop to begin with. Had we gone as a whole team, there would have been 7 days, would have been like the 7 seconds like it took the 3 of us. So I would go to that as a team.
Yeah, I would agree, Cheryl. That's what I was thinking, reflecting on, as well as I should have went that first day, and that would have bumped everything up a little bit quicker, and I'd been able to explain it to the SLT a little bit clearer as well, right? So I would have just sped everything up a little bit.
I think one of the things of when we read, like when it was sent to us, it was more described as like a student services initiative. And so it was probably took us 5 minutes into the day, and we're like, no, this is like bigger than that. So I think that was why just the 3 of us went.
Makes good sense.
Michael, last word, any advice you give yourself sitting there at the table 3 years ago?
all that's going through my head right now is if we would have had the entire team there, you would have not, it might not have been as smooth of a presentation for you because our table would have been completely vibrating.
So it is maybe better that we just make sure only a select few come. Yeah.
Spread it out a little bit. Spread it out a little bit. Yeah.
Well, it has been such a pleasure connecting with you all along, and we've so enjoyed our opportunities to work with you as a leadership team, but also your principals and your schools as well. And it's been just so wonderful working alongside of you.
And we are super excited to have you come and share this story a little more in depth at our retreat in May. We are very much looking forward to having you join us in Lacombe. And I think Tracey already has the roadmap of the attractions that you need to attend outside of the retreat.
Got it all mapped out.
All right. With that, thank you so much. And we look forward to continued conversations. Thank you for the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
Okay, I was not surprised hearing a number of the things that came out from that conversation just because of ongoing engagements that we've been able to have. And as these ahas have surfaced at different points, it's been not only great to see from the team the ahas coming up, but the learning we get to do from those ahas too. Sure. And when they talked about their divisional continuum of supports around student transitions, it's probably one of the, at its starting point, one of the more robust ones that we've seen within a division of really taking the components of the framework and looking at it from a divisional perspective of tiering the supports we're putting in place to ensure, as they mentioned, this provincial priority that they know they have to be able to evidence success in.
Yeah, that really stood out to me too, is that, having that provincial ed plan where they need to work within that umbrella, and that they could very easily, and Aaron was great in describing the fact that, they focused on student transitions because that's part of the provincial mandate, but that they could, as a leadership team, a district leadership team, look at building a continuum of supports, using their data and evidence and their collaborative team meetings to be able to enhance and grow that student transition piece.
So that really connects to something that I noted as we talked through. And they had suggested that we've seen particularly the collaborative team meeting and success it's having in school, but it's proliferated into many other areas. And that things like starting meetings with celebrations, ensuring norms are in place, picking one to practice, like small little things that we promote for that one type of meeting have so much power in other ways that we're coming together. And I love when Michael was saying, we even have team members that weren't involved in some of those first conversations that we're adopting. And we're seeing focus and efficiencies. Yeah,
I love that they talked about the fact that when they first stepped into this, it was, okay, and they were so excited. That's the Saskatchewan meeting. We have to reinforce that. But they totally could see that this was a great framework for our schools. But it's interesting for them over time, as they understood it more deeply for schools, then started to go, oh my goodness, this is much bigger than just what we do at school. We can be using it.
I remember the exact instance when Aaron had that aha and then had the, let me tell you about some other ways that districts have done this. And there were connections that were totally made within that. So I think you talking about that excitement, and they talked about it from the first introduction, I think really reinforces the idea that when we're engaging in collaborative response work, it's not about stopping what you're doing and starting something new.
No.
What's at the essence of the collaborative response is we don't talk about it as a model. It's a way of thinking. It's a mindset in your school that will be able to connect things that you are already doing. You're not abandoning work that you've done or structures that you're seeing success with. You're aligning, connecting, and then enhancing through this work. And I think we've seen this over and over again, especially schools that have done past work in response to intervention, in multitude systems of
Professional
supports,
learning
schools that, professional
Yeah.
learning communities, collaborative inquiry.
Yeah.
Any of those types of structures come into this and go, oh, I see how we can make those connections.
Well, and I think that this is the difference between some of those initiatives that we've talked about and we've worked through over the past and absolutely influenced our work. Absolutely.
100%.
But on top of that is through collaborative response, how everything fits together. And it is very intentional that our visuals are puzzle pieces, because the power comes in impacting your whole school, impacting your whole division when people start to see the connectedness of all the pieces. And that's when we talk about collaborative response is not another thing on your plate. It is
100%. And it's so exciting at Southeast Cornerstone to see it now being woven in as this is our plate.
Yeah.
It's how we can accomplish what we're trying to accomplish for students, for schools, and for our communities.
So exciting.
Yeah. So we are definitely excited to have the team come and be part of our retreat that's happening in May in Lacombe. Check out at jigsawlearning.ca/events/retreat for some further information around that. We have a number of different schools and school divisions that will be presenting, sharing their story, and then most importantly, learning from one another as we go. As always, if you have questions or further comments, please reach out, like, share, subscribe for this episode. And it all comes down to, again, how do we create consistent structures to ensure every child benefits from a team, because every child deserves a team, absolute core of this work. It's why we exist in this profession, to be able to ensure that we can see impact for students.
Yeah.
So with that, we wish you all the best and be looking forward to connecting with you in a future episode. Take care.
See you soon.
For more on collaborative response, visit jigsawlearning.ca or join the JL Insider to receive access to newly added resources and content. Make sure to follow us on social media. Subscribe to the podcast and the Jigsaw Learning YouTube channel to access past and upcoming episodes. Join us again to continue to build your own capacity and leading collaborative response in your context.